Hello, everyone. My name is Brennan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. Welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Returning to the show on this episode of The Guest Awakened is a very important person in this podcasting community. It's the one and only Eli from the Star Wars in a Galaxy pod. Hey, Eli, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me back, Brennan. It's been too long. I'm excited to be back. I'm excited to. We have a great topic today that we often do bracket streams on Star
Hmm.
Wars in the Galaxy. We're trying to get those back more frequently. And I was thinking as I prepped my list, as I prepped my top five list, I'm like, this is a really great topic for us to do one of these um, for one of those on. And I had a really fun time putting together this list. I when you initially pitched me the topic of this episode, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure and then I'm not sure how great I'm going to be at picking these out. And then the more I was looking into it, the more I was having fun with it, and yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited.
Um,
Now, because you're returning to the show, we've already asked you the preliminary question. I got one more question to kind of get our conversation going. Where's your anticipation level for Andor season two?
that's complicated. That's a complicated question.
Mm-hmm.
I am. I, I know you and I have talked about this before. I know a lot of our friends in the space have talked before about this. I have a very complicated relationship with Andor, this show,
Well, so do I.
which is the fact, yeah, which is the fact that I I like a lot of it. We're rewatching season one for In a Galaxy right now, and I am genuinely enjoying it. No, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not my flavor of Star Wars. That's how I usually describe it. Is it's not my flavor of Star Wars. When I think of Star Wars, I go to the laser swords, the Jedi, the Sith. The good versus evil, the morality battle of it all. Um, uh, that earlier today there was actually a Force Center stream that was a question that I sent in about high fantasy,
Yes.
basically just being like
Yeah.
me ranting about wanting more high fantasy in
No,
Star
you
Wars.
made a good point.
Um, with that being said, it's not like I'm dreading Andor. More Star Wars is more Star Wars, and I love that we're getting this. This is I think we're gonna get a great story. Um, am am I excited for any potential discourse that comes our way? No, no, I'm
Mm.
not. Um,
Yes, there's
but
always that. Yes.
I think that the discourse this time will be neutered quite a bit for a few reasons. First of all, the 4 week release instead of like the 9 week release will do good for that.
Yeah.
And B, most of us are on Blue Sky now, and so I think that's gonna
Oh,
Twitter was just horrible for it,
yes.
and Blue Sky for Skeleton Crew was pretty decent.
Very nice.
So
Yes.
um, I I think that but look, is it the Star Wars I necessarily want, or I understand why it's important and I understand why it's necessary and why we need it
Hmm.
right now, especially, but is it the Star Wars I necessarily want right now? No, but I will never say no to more Mon. I will never say no to more Krennic. I've loved
Mm.
of course seeing Cassian on his journey. We have so many great characters, so many great storylines to continue. And yeah, so I would say my anticipation level for Andor season two is moderate. There are projects we know far less about in Star Wars' future that I am probably as much as twice or three times as anticipated for the new Jedi Order film, Ahsoka season 2, are the two big ones in my head right now. Probably Jedi 3 as well is up there as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have a complicated relationship with Andor. I think in terms of quality, it might be one of the best streaming things I've ever seen. But I am definitely not in the camp of Andor is great and everything else sucks. Because we know there
Yeah,
are some people like that on the internet.
yeah. No, I got fed up with them last time very quickly.
Yes, I did too.
And yeah, no, and I'm not denying the quality of the series.
Mm.
I think it's extraordinarily shot, but mostly I think it's extraordinarily written. But yeah, no, the specific thing that irked me last time about it really was that it was being compared so often to two shows that I really, really love and really hold dear to me, which are the Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
Which to me are just like they're both such great intense character pieces. One about a character that I love, that I thought I knew and loved in his own special way, and made me love him in a completely different way in Kenobi. And then the other about a character that I thought I knew and I thought I kind of hated. And then, Mandalorian made me like Boba Fett. Book of Boba Fett made me love Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Which is just like extraordinary. Like, of course I understand and love Cassian more after Andor and Obi-Wan after Kenobi and blah blah blah. But the mass reversal of the Book of Boba Fett, that like the magic act that the Book of Boba Fett did of making Boba Fett, who my joke often was, even a few years earlier, was if he came back, I'd want him to come back to only die a stupider way than before. The magic trick of making him into one of my favorite Star Wars characters cannot be under like that is a master class.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that it's unfortunate that the shows were getting compared to Andor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because to me, it's like, why do we need to compare these things?
Yeah. And I understand everybody's going to have their rankings.
Yeah.
I understand everybody's going to have their preferences. But there's a difference between having your preferences and using things to bash other things. That's always been my sort of thing.
Yeah. Yep. But so that part of the discourse was not fun. But as you say, hopefully this time around, things will be a little bit quieter in that sense.
Yeah, I think it will be. Yeah.
But yeah, more Star Wars. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right. So our topic today, which is an interesting one, which is our top 5 favorite battles in the Star Wars saga. Now, there's a lot to choose from here.
There is. I went through the entire canon timeline on Wikipedia just to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Yes. Yes, it's there's a lot, so this is gonna be big.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Before we begin, were there any that didn't make the cut, but you still want to mention?
I'm glad you brought this up because I do have 3 honorable mentions.
Okay.
That I had to put on because of stuff. Okay, so the first one is the Battle of Malastare.
Oh, yes.
On my honorable mentions, which is of course the battle depicted in the episode of the Zillo Beast. After which, of course, the Zillo Beast awakens from the sinkhole where they use basically the Star Wars equivalent of a nuke, but it's just electrical energy, the electro-proton bomb, I believe it's called. But it is stated in the opening narration of that episode to be the largest battle of the Clone War yet. And we were already like well into season 2 of that show. So this was like a big deal even for the Clone War.
Yes.
And, you know, it followed that up with rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of battle droids. Like, and seemingly endless. So that's my first honorable mention. My second honorable mention would be the Battle of Atollon at the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 3. You know, the Empire finds the Rebels. It's one of the first big battles of coordinated groups of rebel cells against the Empire, ending with the sacrifice of Commander Sato, and his ships destroy some of the Imperial ships. The Bendu's rage, flaring on both Rebel and Imperial starships alike, and the first sign that although the rebellion was powerful, they weren't quite there yet. They weren't at the level to really take on the Empire full force. Granted, they were going up against one of the most clever and cunning Imperial admirals in Grand Admiral Thrawn. That's my second one. And my third one is, as described in the crawl of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, the first major victory of the Rebel Alliance against the Galactic Empire, that being the Battle of Scarif. Scarif is my third honorable mention. It's a great battle. It's a lot of fun to watch. You know, all the action happening on the beaches of Scarif, and also above in the skies of Scarif with Red and Gold Squadron, and that reused footage from A New Hope. It's genuinely a great battle to watch on screen. I'm not a huge fan of Rogue One in general, but I cannot deny the scope of the battle.
Yeah.
And how impactful that is. And so, yeah, those are my 3 honorable mentions.
That's good choices. We will see if those show up again on my list. We'll see. But yes, those are excellent choices. And the Battle of Malastare, I had actually kind of forgotten that it was such a large scale battle.
Yeah, it's huge. It's like now it's lost in the shuffle of the fact that the next 2 episodes are used to be Star Wars Godzilla, and that's a whole beast unto itself.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to shade that in any way, because I love both those episodes, and I love the fact that all these years later in the Bad Batch, we got that revelation of what happened to that dangling thread at the end of that arc where Dr. Bull says, hey, you want me to clone the beast? And that was just kind of out there for like a decade. Yeah. And then we finally figured out what happened to that. But yeah, no, Malastare is huge. Malastare is huge.
Yes, that's a good choice. And I'm glad you mentioned it because I had actually forgotten about that one. So, all right. So I don't really have any honorable mentions. There's a lot of battles in the Star Wars saga, and I'm sure that if I thought about it, we could go on for hours and hours talking about some of the other battles. But let's begin with your number 5.
All right, my number 5. Now, my number 5, I went back and forth between 2 for this one. And I'm still wondering if I made the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see what my other one was as soon as I tell you what this one is, actually. I went with the first Battle of Geonosis.
Oh yes, good choice.
Now, as of course, now you know my alternate I was thinking of was should I put the first Battle of Geonosis or should I put the second Battle of
Oh yeah,
Geonosis
they're
here?
both good choices. Yes.
I decided the first just because I think it ends up the thing that ends up pushing me over the line is the arena fight with all of the
Oh
Jedi
yes.
is so iconic of an image to me. All those lightsabers cutting through all those droids is just such a wow moment in a in Attack of the Clones, yet another film I have complicated feelings about. But
Oh
like
yes, so do I.
I can't deny that that's awesome. It's just like the imagery of all those Jedi lighting up their sabers. You know, the the one of the first like real on mass descriptions of what Obi-Wan was talking about in New Hope. For generations, the Jedi were guardians of peace and justice in the Old
Yeah.
Republic. This is what that was. I mean, I know they're rapidly shifting to become generals and the fall of the Jedi and all that kind of stuff, but this is what they. But this is how this is the twilight days of the golden age of the Jedi.
Hmm.
This is how Jedi were supposed to act. Um, and you know, in defense of their own, in all that kind of stuff. Um, just such a great imagery there. So yeah, the first battle of Geonosis in mind.
That's a good choice. I love the part when the droid control ship core falls
Oh yeah, that's
and you
great.
get this big dust cloud.
Yeah, and
And
that also great gets that great imagery of the clones firing into the dust storm.
yes, yeah.
That's like classic war imagery. Like I can imagine like a shot like that in like a Vietnam document. Like I feel like that's George reaching back into some of his like historical roots there.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's a brilliant moment, and I love I also love the fact that the the Jedi, it's interesting because that moment when Yoda comes to the rescue, yeah, with the clones is really neat. Of course, he gets some great lines around the survivors. Around the survivors, a perimeter create, and then of course you have the final duel between Dooku and Yoda, and Anakin and Obi-Wan and Dooku. You certainly had the seeing all the new vehicles and the new tech, all the droids, all the walkers, all that stuff, which is just fun to watch. And also,
Yeah,
it really sets up a lot of what's going to happen later in the Clone Wars.
yeah, it is the first battle of the Clone Wars. Is it the only battle of the Clone Wars I have in on my list? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it
Yep.
is.
But the other one you mentioned, is a direct result of
Yeah,
this one. Yeah, the second Battle of Geonosis, which is also really good.
yeah, it's great. One of the things that was pulling me towards it and why I was having this debate in my head is we actually technically see more of it, just because like for much of the Battle of Geonosis, we're still focused on those smaller battles, Anakin and
Yeah,
Obi-Wan and Yoda versus Dooku and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
No, we see a lot of the big ground battle in the first three episodes of that arc.
Yes.
Um, uh, like it is depicted as this like brutal, big ground scale battle, and it's just incredible in scope. The one line I can never forget. Just because it's just so funny from the battle is there's a like an LAAT walker of clones being shuttled down, and a nameless clone as they're like shuttling down through the skies of in the middle of the battle goes, "Good thing those bugs can't aim." and they immediately get blown up directly after he says that. And it's
Mm.
just like, okay, come on. That's a little too on the nose.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff. But that first battle, you
Yeah.
mentioned the Book of Boba Fett earlier. The death of Jango Fett is a big deal
Oh yeah, it is,
into
and it's seen in that
later in the
show.
story. Yeah, yes, it is one of those moments that's just it's going to have a huge effect on things to come.
Yep, Django's death. The the start of the Clone Wars just in general is going to have huge effects. It's the Jedi's becoming it's it's the meme that I've seen constantly floated across the internet about Attack of the Clones of like Mace Windu saying we're keepers of the peace, not soldiers, and then 2 hours later he cuts the guy's head off. Um,
Mm.
this is the beginning of the end for the Jedi of this time. And
Yeah,
it's also, the beginning of the Clone War, which is, going to be this massive, massive war taking place on many, many planets, many systems throughout the galaxy that'll cause millions, billions of deaths and permanently shift the galaxy as it is,
yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
No, it's a good choice. And one thing I also like is the geography of the land,
Oh
which
yeah,
is really cool.
yeah, Geonosis is such an interesting setting for a battle to take place.
Yeah, so good choice there. Number five for me, uh, is also from the prequels. It is the Battle of Naboo.
Aha, yeah.
Now, you have to let me know, is that one on your list?
It's higher.
Uh, okay.
Yeah, I
Well,
have Battle of Naboo at number 3.
okay. Well, I
Um,
think what I'll do is let me just share some thoughts on it. I think that Naboo visually is such a great location. And I think that the battle, this is classic Star Wars. There's three parts of the battle. There's the land battle, there's the space battle, and then there's the lightsaber duel.
I would argue 4
Yeah.
because we have Padme and
Oh,
the
that's right.
the
Yes.
the folks in the palace. So we have the
Yeah.
palace, and then we have the big ground battle. Then we have the lightsaber duel, and we have the space battle. Because George
Yeah.
wanted to get extra complicated with all of this.
Yes. Um, all the while underscored by John Williams' amazing music. Arguably, Duel of the Fates is the best piece he's ever written.
It's one of them.
And
It's up there.
it's up there, yeah. And so we have these four elements of the battle going on. Now, the battle with the Gungans is really interesting because you get to see what a Gungan army is like. But then you see how the droid army
Yep.
operates. And it's interesting how the battle eventually they all lose, except for the fact that Anakin is able to get in the droid control ship and causes the destruction of the droid army. But it's a
Well, on the
massive
Gungans part,
for the Gungans, yes, for the Gungans.
I was gonna say because like Padme, uh, the Gungans may have lost, but Padme and the others were doing pretty decent at getting the freaking palace back. And then we had the whole thing with the lightsaber duel where Maul gets Qui-Gon, but that gets a little too
Hmm.
big for his britches and doesn't realize that Obi-Wan's out for blood.
Yes. But yeah, it definitely takes some interesting twists and turns. And I
Yeah,
think that what works for me is just the way it's all tied together so well. It's one of the reasons I really, really enjoy it. And just visually, it's quite a spectacle. And of course, one of the greatest lightsaber battles in the entire saga. So
Yeah.
that's my number five.
If I may, I think I'll share more of my thoughts once we get to it on my list because it is higher on my list.
Oh yes, we certainly will. Okay,
All right.
what is your number four?
My number four is going to be the most controversial pick on my list, I believe,
Okay.
because I think that people who listen to this probably will think I ranked it too low.
Oh.
Yeah, and just before, to get in front of this, I'm not saying this is a bad battle. In fact, it's number four on my list. It's very good, but I think a lot of people love this battle because of nostalgia reasons, and I'm not trying to say that's bad or anything because but just as somebody who holds the this specific film and all that kind of and trilogy and all that kind of stuff in a little less sacred territory than some.
Mm.
And I'm not saying I hate it. I'm just a different, slightly different relationship with it than some. No more preamble. Number four, the Battle of Yavin.
Mm. All right, that's actually my number two. But go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. No, I figured that a lot of people would have it higher.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, it's fantastic. Revolutionized cinema at the end of A New Hope, and following all the other ways The New Hope revolutionized cinema. Uh,
Hmm.
the classic, George drawing upon a lot of World War II films, upon a lot of all of his various inspirations for that infamous French run. That has that really raw energy of it's just it's just these few dozen pilots against one of the most fearsome imperial weapons, the most fearsome imperial weapon to ever exist. That David versus Goliath aspect of it. Um, uh, and it's really special. It's really it's incredibly important. Um, it's it set the model for Star Wars space battles. It is that gold standard. Seeing those X-wings and Tie fighters fly around, uh, it will never get old. It holds up really well. I was watching. I for the first time recently just watched Superman 2, which came out the same year as Empire, and you can tell the dating of special effects in that film
Yes.
in a way you really can't with the original trilogy. That's how damn good those effects were. That you can still do they look does it look a little bit older? Yeah, but it you if you asked me when these films were made based on look alone, I probably would have given you a date 20 years, and I didn't know what I knew. I'd probably give you a date 20 years later than they actually were. Uh,
Yeah.
which is how well it holds up. Classic lines. You're all clear, kid. Let's blow this thing and go home. Uh, use the force, Luke. Um, I can't shake him. All the conventions of a rebel versus empire battle were built
Force is
here.
strong with this one.
Yeah, force is strong with this one. You
Hmm.
can list them for hours, and yeah, again, nothing but respect for this battle. There are other ones that I think because there is no ground battle for this one, maybe
Hmm.
puts it down a peg for me. But
Okay.
again, I'm ranking it over Gino Joseph, which does. So I don't know. I think it's just I think it's because like it is like it was. I feel like the Battle of Yavin, in a lot of ways, was designed to be iterated on.
Yeah.
Like it was the first. It was the most basic, and not that that is a bad thing, but like future films and shows would build on it and make that format bigger and better.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It's an extraordinary um, technical achievement, and also just right toward the end there, the tension building is so good that it has the audience on the edge of its seat, even if they know what's going to happen at the end. It's got that power. And you mentioned the Battle of Scarith earlier, and that also adds some context to this battle.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So no, that's a very, very good choice, and I don't think there's anything controversial about putting it at number 4 because it still made your list, and that's good.
Yeah,
Yes. All right. So my number 4, which I just
I'm so
mentioned,
sorry. I'm blanking. What's your number? What was your number 5 again?
number 5 is the Battle of Naboo.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. No, that's okay, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Now I remember that.
Which
Okay,
is
yeah.
your number
What's your number
3.
4? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. My number 4 is, as you mentioned, the Battle of Scarith. Um, for years and years, we all knew about that opening line in the crawl of the New Hope that the rebels had won their first major victory over the Empire. And then to finally get to see it in Rogue One was really neat. Yet again, it's another battle that involves several pieces. You have the space battle, you have the land battle, and then you have Jyn and Cassian getting the Death Star plans. Edited very, very well, and filmed very, very well. And just getting to see this battle was really, really neat. And the getting to see the old style 70s Imperial look, but in modern film, was really good. And I liked
I
that
always
it,
love that with Imperial era and like new
yeah,
Star Wars stuff, getting to see that sleek Stormtrooper armor, the sleek TIE fighter, like
yeah,
not that it looked bad in the original trilogy by any stretch of the imagination, but there's just something that scratches about that scratches that itch for me.
yeah. And if you look really close, you can see the ghost from Rebels,
Absolutely.
which is really neat. So the thing that I think works for me the most about the battle is just the emotional stakes that it has going on. And there are some moments during the battle that really are very moving, um, such as when Chirrut Imlay makes that long walk over to the master switch, saying, I am one of the Force and the Force is with
The
me.
Force is with me.
That's a brilliant moment. Getting to have a moment of K2SO sacrificing himself to save Jyn and Cassian. Getting, obviously, Tarkin showing up with the Death Star and killing everybody, which is a very, very bold move, but I think it was the right decision in the end. Yeah, none of their heroes survived. I think that was a very brave decision. And emotionally, it just felt right. I mean, how did you feel about the way it ended all the characters.
So I got spoiled about this.
Oh,
I got spoiled about this.
oh, you did. Oh
Um,
boy.
yeah, I didn't. Rogue One was the last time I saw a Star Wars movie, like a few weeks after it. Like I waited a few weeks till
Oh, yeah.
after it premiered. That's the last time that happened. Um, uh, yeah, no, I got inadvertently spoiled about that. Rogue One is just I go on record and I will go on record and again, it is my least favorite live action Star Wars film. And the key
Okay.
word for that is least favorite. Um,
Yes.
there's still a lot to love about it. But yeah, I remember at the beginning being jarred by that decision. Um, but I do think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I've come to not necessarily love it, but definitely appreciate it for what it is. Do I wish that like Jin or Cassian would have survived, like one of them?
Mm.
Yeah, maybe. But like I understand the message of the story that they were trying to go with, and I appreciate how I will say that no matter what I thought of the idea, the execution was spot
Yeah, and it's really an interesting, because the opening call to the original trilogy talks about winning their first major victory, and it's interesting to look at the Battle of Scarif and say, well, is it a victory to the rebels? Yes and no. I mean, thankfully, they're able to destroy two Star Destroyers, destroy the Shield Gate, get the plans at a very, very, very great cost.
on. Yeah,
But it was a victory in the sense that because they got the plans and got them to Princess Leia, we know where the story goes from there. And it's really great. And of course, yet we have to talk about, even though it's not technically part of the battle, Darth Vader's Hall of Rampage, we'll call it.
my most dude broy take, which is that is my favorite film scene of that film.
Yes.
Uh,
No, I agree.
no, love like I remember I practically like squealed like a little kid when I
Mm,
saw that in theaters. That was such a and I've come to appreciate in a far different way now just because of like the 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 how that scene shows the zenith of the fear that the
hmm.
legend of Darth Vader was able to inspire throughout the galaxy is so spot on. It's just terrifying.
It's a
It's
slasher film scene.
this unstoppable force.
It's
It's a
like a,
slasher film.
it's like from Halloween or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's terrifying.
Yes.
And I would regard it much better actually as a slasher film theme. A scene had Obi-Wan Kenobi not done a better Darth Vader slasher film scene
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
of him going through on Mapuzo and just like being like a stalker. My God.
Yes.
Um, that's horrifying. But even this was like that music. Which shout out to Michael Giacchino because
Yes.
I associate that with being very Williams music. It isn't, but it sounds like John Williams wrote it under his slaughter.
Yes.
And I mean that
Yes.
in only the most complimentary way.
Yes.
It's horrifying in that scene is horrifying in all the correct ways. Um, and I understand there's a lot of people who will be like, but it's fan service. Yes, I understand. Next question.
Yeah. It's
I
like,
understand it's fan. I understand it's fan service. I am the fan being serviced.
yes.
Thank you.
It's like how
Move
much of
along.
Star Wars is fan service? All of it. So yeah. No, it's a great battle, and yes, you mentioned Michael Giacchino. His score gives it so much, the whole battle, so much drama and tension, and you really get invested in what's going to happen. And ultimately, when the Death Star destroys the Citadel and all their characters die, that moment with Cassian and Jin on the beach, underscored beautifully by Michael Giacchino. Yet again, music playing a big part in why we love a battle in Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, your number three, which you already mentioned, but go ahead.
Is the Battle of Naboo, which is I'm almost certain is inspired by just by love of the Phantom Menace as a film. Love that film. Always loved that film. Used to be my favorite Star Wars film. Not now. It's closer to the middle of my list, but I love it no less. It's just that my opinions on other films have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if we're talking about David versus Goliath,
Yes.
this to me is more David versus Goliath even than Yavin and A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Like the absolute gall of like ignore the ground battle for 1 second. Just think about like going into the palace. It's new. You have Newt Gunray who's taken over, and the Trade Federation who've taken over Naboo, with an armada of battle droids, the likes of which the galaxy really hasn't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And up against them, you have an extremely accomplished Jedi Master, cool, but only one of them, his above average Padawan,
Yes.
a little boy, the Queen of Naboo, a few handmaidens, the chief of security, a and an astromech droid.
And a clumsy Gungan.
Yeah, but the Gungans with the
Yes.
army now, so you don't even have him.
Yes.
Under any normal scenario, they would lose, then it wouldn't be close.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not a normal scenario.
Nope.
This is the Phantom Menace, where they
Yes.
somehow managed to win,
Yes.
which is very and just like what the Battle of Naboo, like, especially like if you look at it in a historical context in the universe, like of this idea of like, ironically, even though Padme would become one of the staunchest Republic loyalists as a senator later on, this battle would do the most to inspire separatists, I believe. The idea of these, which is doubly ironic because the other side of this conflict would indeed become separatist benefactors. But I'm talking about like the political movement of the
Yes.
separatists, not the actual like entity of it.
Mm-hmm.
My point being like the idea of like these local civilians, the local the Gungan Grand Army and the Naboo Royal Security Force, which as we know the Naboo colonist people weren't really a warlike people. They had a security force, but like Panaka says at the beginning of the film, our soldiers aren't ready for our security forces ready for a battle-hardened Federation army.
Yeah.
But their ability to fight back and do it successfully, along with this little kid hopping in a starship for the first time and somehow destroying the main Trade Federation ship. Of course, Chosen One and all that kind of stuff, but they didn't know that. Like the absolute craziness of that happening, a battle in a large scale battle in an age where large scale battles really hadn't been seen in hundreds of years.
Yes.
This is a big deal. This is just a big deal. And it marks off. It's the capstone of the Phantom Menace, a movie which I was already loving to that point, but really like close it off as being pulpy, but yet serious, yet fun, yet tragic, yet all of those great emotions that just make a great Star Wars. So yeah, that's why I love the Battle of Naboo, and that's why it earns the second place spot, the third place spot.
Yes, no, absolutely. It is it's just such fun. I mean, and I'm sure you did too. Last year I went to the 25th anniversary showing of Phantom Menace.
I've actually not been to any of the anniversary
Oh no.
things. I've been horrible at that. I just because of timing and stuff like that, I've always wanted to go, especially for Phantom Menace, because I wanted to see the Acolyte like
Oh
thing
yes,
that
yeah.
went along with it. Although I did end up going to one of the I did end up going to one of the later that year. I did end up going to a theater in one of the theaters in Los Angeles, um, uh, because they were doing one of the fan screenings of the first two episodes of The Acolyte, which I managed to get to
Oh,
see
okay.
before,
Awesome.
like the day before it came on to Disney Plus, which was a crazy experience.
Hmm.
Seeing those two first episodes of Acolyte in the theaters, never,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. It was
Yes. I
incredible.
mean, the theatrical
Um,
experiences are just like I've been lucky enough to see all 12 of the Star Wars films in the theater. I've been that lucky. When I was a kid,
that's
well,
fantastic.
when
Yeah,
it was like when I was like 12 is when the re-release of the original trilogy. I've gotten to see all of them in theater, which is really, really cool. But the Phantom Menace, I mean, that when we get to the battle, I get really excited because not only is it a great battle, but any chance to hear that great John Williams music is all I need to be pulled in.
oh yeah, and
Yeah.
also there are also so many fantastic quotes from there. Like if we're talking about the quotability of Yavin, we got to talk
Hmm.
about the quotability of Naboo. The number of times I've used the ouch time gif,
Yes.
astronomically high, very
Ouch
high,
time.
very very high. The number of times I've used ouch time.
It's a good one.
No
Um,
sit, no worrying, no giving up, General Jaja. We said think of something.
yeah, those are great lines. I just love them. And Anakin going, "Oops," lines like that. Just
I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
yeah, it's good stuff. Now this is pod racing. Um, so my number three, you mentioned in your runners up, is the Battle of Athlon
Adeline.
from season three of Star Wars Rebels. I love this battle because there's so much going on here. And as you mentioned, yes, the Rebels are up against the greatest Imperial mind there is in Grand Admiral Thrawn. But this is where we learn Thrawn's weakness. He's a very good planner. He's a very good strategist, but there's one thing he lacks.
He just knows nothing about the Force.
Yeah, he knows nothing about the Force, and he does not count on the unexpected happening. And there are several unexpecteds that happen in this battle. First off, Admiral Constantine
Is just dumb.
is an idiot and full
It's
of
just
himself.
dumb.
And he's full of himself. So what he does is disobey Thrawn's orders, which is something that Thrawn did not expect. And as you mentioned, of course, Jun Sato decides to give his life to stop Thrawn. And And because Constantine disobeyed orders, Sato rams his ship into Constantine's ship and destroys it. And Constantine was commanding an interdictor cruiser, which, as we know, could pull ships out of hyperspace, meaning our heroes could not get away with the interdictor cruisers. Now, because of Constantine's arrogance and Sato's heroics, they were able to open up a hole for Ezra to get away. Ezra then convinced Sabine Wren's family to join the fight. They destroy the other interdictor. And of course, on the ground, the Bendu, who Kanan manages to make angry, basically destroys a lot of Thrawn's ground forces. And Thrawn thinks he has the upper hand on the Bendu and quote unquote kills him. But we know the Bendu is probably much more powerful than that. And we hear him laughing, so we know he's still there.
Well, there, not there locationally, probably, but there, as in he still exists, as in whatever kind of weird force thing he is, still has a presence in the. It's complicated. We don't understand it. This is part of Dave's thing. We don't understand it.
The one we know is that Thrawn did not anticipate any of this. And even though the Empire, well, it's one of those battles where it's hard to say who really won the battle, other than our heroes were able to get away.
Yeah. I think it's an Imperial victory, but I don't think it was like a resounding victory by any stretch of the imagination.
But I love that it's on all these different fronts. And we see Thrawn unleashed here, and we see that he didn't quite plan for everything. And that probably explains why, in the Ahsoka series, he made a deal with the Night Sisters, because he probably thought to himself, the Force got the better of me. I need to figure this thing out.
Yeah, I can't make the same mistake twice.
Yes. And so it's just, to me, such a brilliant bit of Star Wars storytelling. And of course, the Bendu causing this big storm is really, really neat. And getting to see, you have the shield around the base, and the Star Destroyers are bombarding it like in full force. It's really neat to watch. So really an extraordinary bit of Star Wars warfare, and that's my number 3. All right, Eli, any comments before we move on?
No, everything you said about Avalon was true. I think I'm ready for my number 2, which I'm excited to see where our final 2 fall.
Sarah, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is explained by the great Mark Ellis in 2 words: we won the Battle of Endor.
Guess what? You may have figured out my number 1. We'll see. But go ahead.
All right. Yeah, no, the Battle of Endor is classic. It's from my favorite Star Wars movie, Return of the Jedi. We have ground, we have space, we have lightsaber fight.
Oh,
yes. We have those 3 elements going on. We have, talking about but from going from my least to most favorite of all of them. First of all, we have, I think just in terms of everything, a better space battle than Yavin, above Endor. We just got more varieties of ships. We got Akbar, and we got Lando on the Falcon, and we got Wedge still leading the day. more capital ships, more ship-to-ship warfare, the Y-wings, the B-wings, the A-wings, more diversified rebel fleet, a more diversified imperial fleet. Just a bigger variety of stuff. It's very good. We got a great ground battle with a very deliberate Vietnam, uh, and American War for Independence, and classic. This is where the David versus Goliath like extends. The supposedly quote unquote primitive Ewoks with the help of rebel guerrilla forces
Hmm.
tackling the supposedly technologically superior Imperial forces with the scout troopers and the ATSTs. But the Ewoks win back their freedom, yub nub. With all the chaotic actions that the rebel troopers led by Han and Leia and Chewie and 3PO and Rex and oh wait, I wasn't supposed to say that part. We're still trying to figure out that part. But either way,
Yes, we're not
um,
sure about that one
uh,
yet.
I believe it. I still believe. But and then of course one of the greatest sequences in the Star Wars universe by my token, the epic lightsaber duel between Luke
Yes.
and Vader, and then of course the confrontation between Luke and Vader and the Emperor. Um, so many incredible lines of dialogue, ending with the father saving son, Anakin
Yes.
proving that there's still good inside him, and defeating the Star Wars version of the devil, um, and protecting his son and showing that even the darkest of souls can be redeemed. Uh, just and then of course the Death Star is destroyed. For the first time ever, the rebels gained the upper hand in the war. Even if now we know it wasn't the end, it was the beginning of the end for the Empire. Everybody around the galaxy celebrated. The the the, the the good guys won. They did it. The good guys won.
Yeah. No, because even by modern standards, I think that the space battle at the Battle of Endor is one of the greatest special effects scenes in the history of movies, if not maybe the greatest, because they're doing this the old-fashioned way. This is all with model work, and it's funny because when George did the special editions, the only thing he changed was adding an exploding ring coming out of the Death Star, but otherwise left it pretty much as it was, other than remastering the image. And looking at just the scale of it, you still wonder to this day how in the world did they ever do that?
Yeah, it's a great battle to watch. It really is.
Yes, and the land battle with I know that people over the years have given the Ewoks kind of
The Ewoks are
a lot
lovely. I
of
don't want to
crap,
hear
but
anything
the
about the
Ewoks are
Ewoks.
awesome.
The Ewoks are lovely. I don't want to hear anything
Ewoks
about
are
the
awesome.
Ewoks.
I mean, good grief, they're much more vicious than anyone wants to give them credit for.
Yeah. I mean, as long as we're not talking about the Ewoks from the specials, which are genuinely horror-inducing sometimes, I
Yeah,
agree with you.
yeah, and you have the Ewoks, and you have so many great moments, and as you say, so many great lines. I mean, this is where we get a lot of the Emperor's most famous lines,
Yeah, absolutely.
um, and famous moments too. I mean, we get to see the unmasking of Vader. We get to see, you know, Han and Leia, really
Yeah,
kind of when they finally really express kind of their love for each other.
yeah. The,
Uh,
the the greatest line in the movie, in my opinion, "You failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi like my father before
yes,
me."
that is one of the greatest lines, and that is such an iconic moment of if you go back to New Hope, Luke saying, I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father. And then in the Battle of Endor, he completes that arc. Incredible moment in throwing down the lightsaber,
Yeah.
choosing not to use violence, which later plays a big deal into his character in the sequel trilogy. And yet again, John Williams' music. I mean, I know we say that so often around here, but it's really true that the music adds so much to the story. Also, I have to give credit to the editing. Um,
Yeah.
the battle is edited very well.
Mhm.
In jumping back and forth between these three parts of the battle, and it all feels right. None of it ever feels off.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And of course, the ATST work is really neat too,
Yep.
blending seamlessly into the scenes. So we have to thank our special effects crew on that one. They're making the Battle of Endor such a success.
Yeah.
And that's a good choice. So my number two, you mentioned earlier, is the Battle of Yavin.
All right. And so now I'm seeing your list come into full focus, and we're gonna deliver the real shocker at the end with yeah. Why don't actually I have an idea, just not to like tell you what to do on your own show or anything like that. But maybe we talk about your two and number one, and then I'll reveal my big number one, which was not on your list at the end.
Indeed, yes. So my number two is the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah. Classic.
Classic theme. Of all the battles in Star Wars, it's probably the most famous.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the trench run and all that. But getting that moments like Luke turning off his targeting theater. Somebody did a video on YouTube, I can't remember who it was. That was the completion of the character's story in that first film is learning to let go. As Obi-Wan taught him. To let go and just use his instincts and let the Force guide his decisions. We have, obviously, the introduction of Wedge, one of our favorite characters in Star Wars. And they've done quite a bit with his character over the years. Um, and you have the sense of timing, the sense of urgency, I think, in the battle is it's an urgent situation. Because as soon as the Death Star rounds Yavin, it's going to target the Rebel base. And so we're up against the clock. And also the introduction of the X-Wings, but also the Y-Wings, which are really neat. And we have the TIE Fighters, including Darth Vader's own fighter. And, Tarkin. I mentioned Admiral Constantine earlier and his arrogance. Tarkin's got the same problem
Yep.
of being really full of himself.
Lets his guard down a bit too easily.
Is it evacuate in our moment of triumph? He's full of himself.
I think you overestimate my chances. The chances, I think it is.
Yes,
right?
of course, you have to see how much Peter Cushing is amazing in
Peter Cushing.
New Hope. He is so good. But yeah, the Battle of Yavin just, to me, is so iconic. And even though you've seen it a bazillion times, the tension and the suspense is still there. And
Absolutely.
of course, that great moment of Han returning is incredible. And that, to me, is one of the greatest battles in Star Wars. And also the one that really set the standard for this story is all about here. So that's why I like the Battle of Yavin. Any final thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I think we should go on to why spoiler a little bit, but I think I know what your number one is, so we should go that first.
Well, my number one we talked about was the Battle of Endor.
Yeah.
Mm, we've already said as much as we really need to say, other than it's a huge battle. It's the largest that we saw in the original trilogy and really ramped up the energy of this is what a Star Wars battle operates like. And we've seen a lot of the other battles operate on the same wavelength of there are multiple elements to the fight. And all of it is driven by the emotion at the heart of it. And the Battle of Endor is the culmination of the story, and it also leads to, probably one of the most fulfilling resolutions of anything. And that's why it's my number one is, and also just in terms of scale and doing it without CGI, I don't think anything like that has ever been matched. All right, so we wanted to save your number one till the end, I guess.
Yeah.
Big surprise, so we'll see what it is.
Yeah.
So go ahead,
I think
Eli.
this
What
actually
is your
might be my
number
most
one?
controversial pick of this
Okay.
but yeah. So, and everybody hear me out on this.
Okay.
My favorite Star Wars battle is the Battle of Exegol.
Nice.
My favorite Star Wars battle is the Battle of Exegol for a litany of reasons. I have made no secret that my favorite Star Wars film is Return of the Jedi, and just below that is The Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
It is a movie that has gotten, for me, in my opinion, way too much hate. And the concept, the thing I think above everything, and I have criticism of the film like everybody else does, but I think the thing that this film nailed, is, aside from just the entire third act, is this idea that Palpatine is such an existential threat to the galaxy that the return of, as I called him earlier, like the devil incarnate, this your satanic force in the galaxy.
Yes.
That is so threatening. He part of the prologue of the episode of episode 9 that I think a lot of people miss is that he says in his message, in 18 hours you have 18 hours before attacks on all three worlds begin, and knowing what weapons in the Sith Eternal Fleet arsenal he has, that means destruction, like Kijimi. And they can do it much faster and a lot more efficiently because remember, every single Star Destroyer has a Death Star laser on it.
Yes.
But, the Resistance didn't stop the First Order. The Rebels didn't kill Palpatine. The Jedi didn't stop everything. It was the people.
And that's my favorite line.
Yep. They have no navy, sir. It's just people.
It's just people.
And and the impact of that, of the galaxy. This is like the I remember, I think it was Alex Salmon from Star Wars Explained saying this about uh like he was talking about this before the Rise of Skywalker came out, which is like, what do you want the legacy of the Skywalkers to be? And
Yes.
he was saying to be able to leave the galaxy in a better place ultimately than where they found it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one way that the Rise of Skywalker absolutely nailed this is that finally the galaxy, for the last 8 films, the galaxy has been this damsel in distress that has always needed rescuing from the rebels, the clones, the Republic, the Resistance, whoever it is. But finally, at the end of episode 9, the galaxy rescues itself. People from all walks of life who may not even agree with each other on some other basic values
Mm-hmm.
come together and say, enough is enough. We are going to defeat what is admittedly one of the most terrifying military forces in galactic history to our knowledge. The Sith fleet, all those cultists, all those Star Destroyers, all those ships, the power of the reborn Emperor infused with the power of the Dyad
Mm-hmm.
is legitimately horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they stand up anyway. Yet they stand up. Lando getting back the Falcon after 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wedge returning to the fight. We see the Ghost there. We know that characters from Resistance were there. We know that Mandalorians were there. I want, the People's Fleet. They made so many models for this that the canon number of members of the People's Fleet is over 14,000. And I'm fine if that's just the number that come out in that initial jump, and they can just retcon more and more that come throughout the battle. Just the idea of this wide, huge breadth of people and organizations and groups who come together to put the final nail in the coffin of the horribly long life that is Chief Palpatine's. It gets me. It gets me on a larger level. It just gets me. Not to mention Finn and Janna storming the Star Destroyers with with the Orbaks and all the other former stormtroopers and
Yeah.
company, which is incredible. And of course, the truly awesome confrontation between Rey, the newly what's that word? God dang it! I'm now just totally blanking on that word. The newly redeemed, the newly redeemed Rey, between Rey, the awesome confrontation between Rey, the newly redeemed Ben Solo, and the Sith Eternal Emperor himself.
Yes.
So many great moments. Ben giving his life to continue to make sure the Skywalker line continues on through the literal bloodline of their worst enemy. That being the final nail in the coffin of Palpatine. That his granddaughter takes the name of his worst enemy. The spirits of all the Jedi coalescing into Rey. To give her encouragement to carry out the final fight. The Sith cultists being blown away. The massive displays of power from both Rey and Palpatine and Ben. Yeah, I've been ranting long enough. The Battle of Exegol is my number one.
If you look at Rey's, hearing all the voices of the Jedi, they win not only as people, but standing on the shoulders of the legacy of Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't have said it any better. It is beautiful. Full disclosure, The Rise of Skywalker was the greatest movie theater experience in my life. And I know that it's a controversial idea, but a lot of it, I think, had to do with the end battle and just the emotion of it and how it all came down to the people stood up and fought back.
The people said, and like all of the different the one of the greatest I think features of that battle is really how many potentials for storytelling it could open up. Because
Yes.
every new Star Wars story that takes place before Exegol, we can now immediately ask, "Hey, were they at Exegol?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, "Hey, remember Wim and Neil and Fern and KB? Were they at Exegol? Were Din and
Mm,
Grogu at
mm,
Exegol? Were was Omega at Exegol? Was X at Exegol? And was Y at Exegol? We could do this all day, and I think that's so. I think it's such a great thing where we can have this sort of end game on steroids battle where
mm,
everyone we know and love with a reason to freaking hate Palpatine, even people who might have allied with dark forces at some point in time would
mm-hmm.
be willing to go and say no, screw you. This time you die for real. That's something truly exceptional.
And Ray's line, Palpatine says, the Sith, there's the pause. And she says, and I'm all the Jedi. To me, that is as powerful to me as Tony Stark saying Iron Man
Oh yeah,
before he
absolutely.
defeats Thanos. It's that powerful to me, and oddly enough, those two films came out the same year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a coincidence that I know a lot of people love to harp on, but if you consider the fact that they were probably getting made at the same time,
Yeah.
it was a coincidence. It was an interesting coincidence, and I think it says a lot about the moment that those films were being written, and like the idea of culminating the Skywalker saga, culminating the Infinity Saga, all that kind of stuff. Um, but I think this is probably my Star Wars bias, but I even though I love the portal scene from Endgame, I like the People's Fleet. I think because it is a bit more democratized at the
Mhm.
end of the day, um, still get has that power in me that even the portal scene doesn't quite reach as much as I love it.
Mhm. Yes. No, I agree. Mm. And the fact that people don't talk about it in the same way that they talk about the final battle in Endgame sort of annoys me because for me, it's just as good, if not better. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
and I think the ultimate takeaway for me from the Battle of Mexico, and this is something the world needs right now, when Ray says to Palpatine, "You want me to hate you, but I won't." There's a lot
Yeah,
of people in this world who disagree on a lot of things. But if that becomes hate, it only destroys everything.
yeah.
And so the lesson for us is we can fight back without being hateful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the idea of I like the whole because I think Ray does hate um uh her her grandfather for a lot of things, but that's not why she fights back.
Yes.
Why she fights back is because of the love she has for those standing beside her. And the
Yes.
Emperor is threatening to destroy that. That's why
Yes.
she fights back.
And it all goes back to Rose Tico saying that's how we're going to win. Not by fighting what we hate, but saving what we love. And
It's
I
almost
could
like The
not
Last
think of
Jedi
the,
was like a good movie or something.
yes, almost like it was one of the best Star Wars films there is. But that's a lesson we need today. And that's the reason why we enjoy the Devil of Exegol so much. And that, of course, brings us to the end of our list. Eli, I can't thank you enough for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, and I know you've been pretty busy with the epic confrontation, so thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your schedule to hang out with me.
Absolutely.
And I know that I'll be back on epic confrontations before too long, so
I'm sure we're still trying to figure out our schedule for
yes.
2025. Yeah, no, we had we as the time of recording this, we yesterday recorded our first event of the year, which I heard from Brandon just before the recording that he got a chance to watch some of, and let me tell you, um, it was mayhem, but it was the good kind of mayhem.
All right. So where can everyone find you, Eli?
Yeah, mostly on Blue Sky. Blue Sky is where it's at these days. You can find all of my links. You can find me are in my link tree linktr.ee/underscore OGFan327. You can find me on Blue Sky at OGFan327.bsky.social. You can find my show Star Wars in the Galaxy, where my best friend Jacob and I watch all the Star Wars we can get our hands on at inagalaxypod.bsky.social, as well as everywhere you get your podcasts. Just look for Star Wars in a Galaxy. We are putting out, Jacob and I are going to be recording our episode um, uh, along with our discussion of season 1, episode 8 of Andor. Nobody's,
Yes.
no, it's season 1, episode 9 of Andor. Nobody's listening tomorrow,
Yes.
which will come out on
Yes.
Friday. And then soon, actually, we are also going to be the next episode, One Way Out. We will be recording sometime this weekend with a friend of both of our shows, Alden Diaz from Octo Radio and Anytime with Ken and Alden. So we got a lot of great Andor coverage, season 1 and the lead up to season 2. We didn't plan it that way; it just kind of worked out.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, Epic Confrontations, which is our spin-off trivia show, you can find at inagalaxytrivia.bsky.social on Blue Sky, and then on the Star Wars in a Galaxy YouTube channel. The next, our latest event, the Coaxium Run, which was recorded the day before we recorded this.
Which was awesome.
Thank you. It was a ton of fun to record. Two teams going at it with a marathon round of Star Wars trivia. Will be out. I think my goal is to get it out by the end of the second week of March. So that would be. My goal is to get it out by the 14th. So check the Galaxy, check the Epic Confrontations Blue Sky to see if that changes. But that's my goal, is to get it out by March 14th.
So, yes, Blue Sky's where it's at, and thank goodness it's a lot less toxic than Twitter.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's very chill, and I'm very glad about that.
Yep. Well, all right, and I would encourage everyone listening, please go give Eli a follow. It is absolutely worth it. And congratulations on reaching 5 years of your show.
It's incredible. Thank you. We never thought we were going to get this far, and we still love doing it. And I will say, we're going to get you on for this, because we're about to embark, after we finish Andor. Star Wars in the Galaxy is going to embark on our biggest project for a long time because of what's next in the timeline for us.
Yes,
we're going to.
I would be very glad to be a part of that. Yes.
The next few years in Star Wars in the Galaxy will be entirely dedicated. We're going to take no breaks in between this for other stuff, even though other stuff will happen in the timeline. But the next, however long it takes, will be all 4 seasons straight through of Star Wars Rebels.
Oh, yes.
Something that I know that Jacob specifically is extremely excited about, and I'm very excited about as well. It's going to be, after Andor, it's going to be Rebels season 1, 2, 3, 4, all in a row. It's going to be a huge endeavor, and we're very excited about it.
Yes, if you would like me to join, I would be more than happy.
Yeah,
because as you know how much I love that show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been a running joke on the show of we seem to invite all the biggest Rebels fans. on specifically, no, we will. We already have. This is how popular Rebels is. We already have some people we have in mind, but we will absolutely get you on for one of our episodes. We'll figure out exactly what, but we will absolutely.
Thank you so much, Eli.
No, thanks for having me on.
Everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Guest Awakens with Eli from Star Wars in a Galaxy Pod. As I said, please go give him a follow. And also give Everett Confrontations a follow. Because you may see the host of this podcast on that potentially again down the road. Anyhow, everyone, my name is Brennan Knorr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. Thank you for tuning in to the Guest Awakens, presented by Page Turners They Were Not My Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.